We'll be giving another 5 minutes for a couple of board members who are anticipated to attend.
Unexpected change of venue.
Responsive change. It's good.
Oh yeah, the homeless strategy back there. So they have one staff person who is doing.
That's right. Also that.
Right, participants. So we'll be able to see when Nikki comes on. Everybody's Mike goes his term in December.
Oh, okay.
And so we have to re-up. Or each one is combination. Another. Yeah, oh, there's Nikki. A lot of you guys are placing vacant seats and all of the seats of the time to the stagger. So termination dates are not. Okay, so we have Nikki Medwetz on. We will have two board members come out next year.
Okay.
And then the gentleman who's going to needed some space. Yeah.
John Leong. Yeah. Read. Hello, Mike Bako. Calling into order the Board of Parks and Recreations Committee on Maintenance Improvements and Partnerships. We'll start the meeting with a roll call of our Robert Medeiros, Chair of this committee, and online we have another board member, Nikki
Aloha.
Nikki Medwetz. She's not a member of this committee, but certainly a board member. But given that we have two members so far, and we have a third joining us right there. Oh. Take it roll.
Yeah, Mike Robinson.
So Mike Robinson is our second committee member present. But we're going to proceed with today's meeting. However, no official committee action or vote will take place due to lack of committee quorum. We'll now proceed with a few housekeeping items. First, members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways, remotely and in person. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed during item number 5, as listed on the agenda. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 3-minute presentation on each item. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. I will then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature in Zoom to be called on. Once all remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to in-person testimony in the mayor's conference room here at Honolulu Hale. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. For written testimonies, include the testifier's address, email address, and their phone number will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. And a quick reminder, as a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones. Members, agenda item number 3 is a presentation by DPR, which provides an overview of DPR's maintenance standards, implementation of maintenance standards and options and recommendations. So at this point, I'll turn it over to. Oh, hello, Mike. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll turn it over to Laura and the team for their presentation.
Thank you. So thank you, board members. Nikki, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we do have a handout. We'll give a handout for the board members today. We do have a number of our staff here as well listening to this. And they're going to be participating with the development of the maintenance as we move forward. So the presenters today are, it's going to be 6 of us in teams of 2, myself and Christine will handle the first portion of the presentation. Dory, if you can go to the next slide. So we'll be covering the organization of the Department of Parks and Recreation maintenance. The next 2 presenters are going to cover the discussion of maintenance standards. First will be Carrie Leong about what maintenance standards are, and then Roxanne Adams is going to be sharing the experience of the University of Hawaii at Manoa when they develop standards. And then the next group of presenters are going to be Tara Hirata and Ed Mitsuda to talk about what the department needs to implement maintenance standards. And then the last part, we're going to circle back to, I guess, the group where we're going to talk about the next steps with you folks. So if you can go to the next slide. So up here you have a slide it shows the Department of Parks and Recreation organization. And so the highlighted portion is what is called the Parks Maintenance and Recreation Services Division, PMRS. This is what people outside the department think of when you think of the Department of Parks and Recreation. What is Parks and Recreation? The red circled sections are the areas that include maintenance. So PMRS is broken the island up into 5 geographic districts, which we'll look at in a minute. But each district is a district manager. Tara is the district manager of District 1. And the district manager manages grounds maintenance as well as recreation. So recreation are the people who run the classes, run summer fun, or permanent events. We have a separate division or section, which is run by the Maintenance Support Services or MSS. And then you see that we also have the Recreation Support Services. I'll get into the other divisions in the department next. If you can go to the next slide, Dory. So here's how the island is broken up by the 5 districts for the park administration. District 1 is Tara here, which manages Sandy Beach up to McCully. District 2 in the green runs from Punahou to Aiea. District 3 is the purple, that's Eva and Leeward Coast. District 4 is black. It runs all the way from Makapu'u to Dillingham or Mokuleia Beach Park. And District 5 is the yellow, which is Mililani, Pearl City, on Waipio, Soccer Peninsula. Next slide. So as I mentioned, each of the district managers oversees the recreation, but also the grounds maintenance. So grounds maintenance staff is assigned within each of those 5 districts. They would be grounds maintenance staff for District 1, grounds maintenance staff for District 2. They handle the irrigation, lawn mowing, this general maintenance items that you see up here. Next slide. So the maintenance support services is island-wide, and that's our trades group. And they handle all of the trades except electrical. And they will provide support services for each of the 5 districts, as well as for their botanical gardens. They are also for the urban forestry where needed, and they will handle the heavier trades work and heavy equipment. Next slide. So the other division that's involved in maintenance for parks and recreation is our division of urban forestry. And the division of urban forestry is broken up into 2 main sections. So you have the Honolulu Botanical Gardens. We run 5 botanical gardens. They have their own maintenance group. And then you have under horticultural services, arboriculture, which is basically the tree trimming work that's done. And then the nursery and landscaping, where they will be doing the plants, the tree, and another type of work along those lines. Executive Services Division is our 3rd division. They do the back office functions. So they do play a support role where they will handle a lot of the fiscal and the personnel matters for these other 2 divisions. But these are where the people are housed for our maintenance workers. And if you go to the next slide, you would ask Robert for us to share the staffing levels. So these are authorized positions. Not every position is filled. We have different candidates, but the maintenance support services or that trades group has 90 authorized positions. The grounds maintenance that are located in those 5 districts total up to 522 authorized positions. That will include people like the mowing crew or the rubbish crew, the specialized heavy in those areas, as well as your general grounds maintenance staff that may be assigned to different parks or areas. And then Division of Urban Forestry, the horticulture, both the tree trimming as well as nursery staff total 60. And then the botanical gardens for all 5 botanical gardens total 22 authorized positions. So when you look at that, you say that's nearly 700 positions. That's a lot of positions. But I want to spend another couple slides. Next slide. This is the land that DPR manages. So again, you know, when you talk about 700 positions, we have 304 parks with nearly 500 acres. And these parks are open 7 days a week, 64 days a year. So there's no closure days. We may have evenings that are closed, but even then we'll have activity often in the parks. In addition to the 304 parks, we have about 1,500 acres of undeveloped lands. A lot of these lands, they may be adjacent to a park and they're used as the park. So Ke'au, certain areas out in Haleiwa, it's attached to Haleiwa Beach Park. You have unimproved lands right next door. You have a lot of activity there. You may have a lot of other areas where it's used as illegal dumping. And so our grounds maintenance services, our maintenance support services may be out there having to actively in areas where it's drawing them away from the improved parts to handle it. We have a lot of dumping in various areas. We also manage the beach rights of ways, the pedestrian malls and the Chinatown area, 10 community gardens, some of which are in parks, but others are not. They're on other lands. And then we also manage all the street trees. This number, by the way, we're getting, we have a federal grant to update our inventory of trees. This may be higher because it hasn't been in a long time. And then last slide for the organization. So the areas we maintain, we're a pretty large park department. Third we do in the past, we're probably the 10th largest park department in the nation because we are the city and the county. So the number of facilities that we maintain and the number of spaces that we maintain that are improved is pretty huge. When we get into the conversation about the types of areas to develop athletic standards, we're having to keep in mind that we're responsible for all these areas and there's different user groups that prioritize different areas. So when you look at athletic fields, between the ball fields and the outdoor fields, we're managing about 300 ball fields, football, soccer, or whatever. But we're also having to manage the outdoor courts, and that group is fairly active about what they want to have things cleared off of the courts, the leaves, the things that are slippery, the comfort stations that we're managing. And then we know that ultimately we'll be getting to the gyms, the swimming pools, the rec centers, and then the general support spaces. So we have to make sure that we're developing standards that our staff can successfully maintain. And then if people want a higher level of maintenance standard, what's going to be needed in order to achieve that? So part of what we're going to be doing is kind of seeing what we can do with the staffing that we have on the maintenance standards and then how we can clean it up to interested in that. And then what's the role of the constant users? So before we launch into the next section, just if you had any questions for Christine and I, you guys are giving Pete and Nikki as well on the organization structure.
Yeah, I have a question to help me better understand. So it almost appears like the maintenance support services is kind of like a shared service arrangement, right? And whereas the ground maintenance is distributed specifically into the different districts.
Correct.
Okay. And so, okay, thanks for clarifying that. So that FTE count on the 522 and 90, that grounds maintenance, that's all in the grounds maintenance into each district. Is that how it's allocated?
Yes, and we actually have a budget request this year. Sorry, I did not bring this slide, but we provided a slide to the council members and I'll share with you. We started to pull out the number of authorized grounds maintenance position by district. And when you look compared it to the number of parks in each district, it seemed like, okay, that makes sense. We have fewer parks in districts 3, 4, and 5. And Dory, if you can go back to that map. So 3, 4, and 5 are the gold, purple, and black. So we have fewer parks in those districts and more parks in the urban and East Honolulu area. But we have about 130 grounds maintenance staff authorized positions each for District 1 and District 2, the red and green. Whereas in districts 5 and 3, we have about 71 to 75 each. There's a significant difference. And in District 4, the Windward Coast and Leeward, I think it's about 80. But then we started comparing the acreage of the parks, and they're significantly bigger than these other outlying areas compared like the campgrounds and the beach park numbers, because these generate a lot of rubbish and a lot of activity. All of our campgrounds are located mainly in 4 and 3, and then beach parks are mainly in those areas as well. So when we started looking at the, also the unimproved land acreage where they're dealing with the illegal dumping or the other use, we felt that it was really imbalanced. So we have a budget request this year to create special project unit teams for districts 3 and 5, which will also then help out District 4, which is understaffed. These teams would start at 10 and go to 6, so they would give some extended day service. And they would have trucks to be able to be activated. So we can share that budget proposal. We know that it's going to take time to build up the staffing, and we didn't want to be unrealistic, and it would take about 100 new staff positions to get to parity. So this isn't going to get us to parity, but it would be a good step in forward.
Yeah, I would imagine the other factor is kind of the compactness too of areas.
Yes.
This is District 4 has a pretty large service area. So if you've got fixed staff, it's probably going to be a longer drive.
The purple and the yellow used to be a single district. So we do a reorganization to separate them into 2 districts. The budget request to have a separate mowing crew and rubbish crew. So each of those districts has a total backup for that heavy equipment is pretty significant. So we haven't been able to start that yet. But we are taking a look at, is there a way to somehow divide that district so that, or find some other way, because the travel time is significant, and it's a very, it's a 2-lane highway, a lot of tourists, so there's a lot of demands. Part of our request was to give them additional containers to get the garbage out of the parks, these locations without having to travel so far.
Thanks.
But we think that in the work that we would like to do with you folks on the maintenance standards, thank you very much for the question and being, familiar with the operational types of things, because it's not going to be just the standards, it's also going to be the staffing and the logistics and the equipment. Should we hop on to the next? Okay. Perry, you're up.
Okay, hi, I'm Perry Leong. I'm the Central Oahu District 5 manager. And I'll be talking about park maintenance standards. So to start off, what are park maintenance standards? It's a guideline set up to ensure the upkeep, safety, and overall appeal of our public recreational spaces. Some examples of park maintenance ground tasks are lawn care, graffiti removal, trimming, and trash pickup. Some facilities that are listed on the slide. These are facilities that we plan on implementing these park standards. So athletic fields, green spaces and trees, playgrounds, bathrooms, pools, gymnasiums, buildings, campgrounds, and infrastructure. Some benefits of park maintenance standards. Currently, our current operations are reactive. So a lot of times we'll get complaints from the public, let's say like a broken water fountain, and then we investigate, and then we submit the work orders. We want to work towards being more proactive and adhering to our park standards, making sure staff are trained to go out and inspect their facilities and work accordingly so we reduce those complaints. Public satisfaction is at a higher rating. Adhering to our maintenance standards will help build public trust by demonstrating a commitment for us to provide a safe, accessible, and well-maintained park for all communities. Why are these standards important to the public? It's for us to ensure that parks remain safe, accessible, and for all to enjoy. DPR is currently piloting a park inspection program. We conducted training for all groundskeepers and supervisors on updated park inspections. It's a streamlined documentation tool. It's to be completed bi-monthly by all maintenance sections. Supervisors are reviewing these inspection forms. Work orders are submitted accordingly, and follow-ups are being tracked. The next slide will show a sample of our updated, streamlined, like groundskeeper inspection form. And just a little bit of background. Prior to 2023, the inspection program, the sheets that staff needed to fill out were long and cumbersome. So it wasn't very efficient. So in late 2023, DPR conducted training for all groundskeepers and supervisors with an updated version of park inspection sheets. These sheets are more user-friendly. All staff are required to complete them, from your line staff at the groundskeeper level all the way up to the supervisory level and then to the superintendent level. Supervisors are responsible for reviewing these inspection sheets, and they ensure that work orders are submitted and follow-ups are done. So since we started this program in late 2023, we are currently monitoring the results, and a lot of work requests have been submitted. So it's seemingly working and getting us to what our goal is, to be more proactive, lessen our public complaints, and making sure our parks are safe for everyone. And then give it over to you, Roxanne.
Oh my God, my name is Roxanne Adams. I'm the administrator for the Division of Urban Forestry. Prior to coming to DPR, I've worked at the University of Hawaii, started out as a landscape manager for the first 10 years, and then moved into the role of Director of Buildings and Grounds. Similarly, the university went down the same sort of path because of we know through research that students and their families come to universities and the first thing they look at are the grounds, and that's when they make their choice. They actually make their choice then. So when you look at a university, you want its facilities to shine and to stand up. And the university inherently knew that their buildings were very old and they had a huge backlog in maintenance. So because we knew that the first place that people were looking was a landscape, we decided to focus on that. And so the university belongs to an organization called APA, and they're a group of facilities maintenance professionals who focus specifically on the facilities and maintenance for educational facilities, K through 12, as well as higher education, museums, and libraries. So they focus primarily on education, but because they understand that people's first contact with any of their organizations is from the outside looking in, they really do have a strong program in grounds maintenance. So we wanted to be able to come up with standards and guidelines that would be able to measure not just qualitative, but quantitatively the different levels of maintenance tasks and how they should be accomplished. So we took a look at that, starting with the university did strategic planning, and they came up with different key result areas. And one of the objectives was to create a campus that could function as a living lab. So taking that key result area and then breaking it down to key performance indicators to help us measure where we were and where we wanted to go. The first key result area we came up with was to create a park-like setting used for teaching, learning, and research. And to do that, we needed to bring the landscape up to something more than just a place that you walk through to get from one place to another. So the first thing we did was to establish an advisory committee, much like the committee that DPR has created with the Parks Advisory Board, and then create standards of care. And when we did this, with key performance indicators, you do know that you have to, these things need to be specific and measurable. So we put dates on it. So we wanted to have that advisory committee established by 2008 and come up with standards of care by the end of that same year. We then moved into training and implementing the standards, and at the same time simultaneously increasing outdoor seating. There was very little outdoor seating at the university, and it wasn't conducive to having classrooms outside and being able to teach outdoors and to be able to use the landscape in their teaching. Then we moved to accessioning of all the campus trees in the hopes that we could move towards accessioning all of these trees and turning the campus landscape into a botanic garden. Thereby would be a documented collection that could be used not only in teaching and learning, but also in research. We then moved into, by 2012, moved into a campus landscape master plan, and then received accreditation through ARBNet in 2015 to create the campus in Arboretum. So to get there, what we first started out with was daily tasks and standards that were created with frontline supervisors and managers. And we knew there were certain things that we needed to get done by the end of every day, and that we wanted to be able to establish some kind of record keeping or data collection. So the first was similar to here, having an inspection, a regular way to inspect. We chose to inspect daily, and the groundskeepers actually do that daily inspection. And what this does is it gets them to have eyes in the ground. So they're looking at these things, and they have a check sheet. So you can see the check sheet on the left-hand side. And those totally line up with the standards. So in their daily inspection, they're looking at things like clearing the walkways and the sidewalks and the roadways first thing in the morning. We recommend that they get it done by 8 o'clock in the morning because it's much easier to work around the sidewalks when there's nobody there. What this does now too is it also tracks the areas in which the groundskeeper was working. And if we were to have any kind of liability claim, we could definitely show that there was somebody in that area and those sidewalks were cleared. Emptying the trash receptacles every morning before the major crowd moves in. Campus opens at 7:45, but classes don't usually start until after 8. So if we get out there and clear the trash, we can use machines to do that as opposed to doing it manually. So that helps to reduce some of the labor costs. We also have a recycling program at the university, and it's separated out from the trash. So that had to be collected as well. This is a health and safety issue. So we needed to make sure that that's done in a reasonable amount of time. Lawn mowing was done weekly, and edging and grooming of those lawn areas weekly as well. Our recommendation to the groundskeepers was to get in there before the mowers get in there, so you set the line. So the groundskeeper sets the line on how far out he's going to trim, and the mower has to catch up instead of the opposite, because the mower guy is sitting on the mower and the guy behind the weed whacker is physically and manually cutting the grass. So hedges are every quarter or as needed, depending on species and depending on location. We look at health safety again to make sure that it's not blocking areas like parking lots and front entrances, to make sure that we're protecting our customer. Weed control and planter beds. We first started out as being really prescriptive about the size of the weeds, but we did move to at least getting the weeds out before flowering so that we didn't create more work by creating a seed bank in the planter beds. We used to, like most places, most landscape companies, we used to mulch. We no longer mulch, but that was another scheduled event that took more than just the groundskeepers, because equipment operators had to move that stuff around, and we had to make sure that we had enough to cover all the beds. All of the university's green waste is produced right on campus. And it's grinded and then turned on campus and then turned to compost and then moved into the campus. So we had to make sure that there was this good stream of material. And then we controlled on sidewalks and roadways. We only had one guy, so he was the guy that managed crack weeds, basically sidewalk weeds, and weeds on the roadways to stop the deterioration of the asphalt roadways. Because as you may have known, roadways were pretty bad. So it took a while. It was long. But it was opened all the way up to the frontline groundskeeper. All the planning stuff was done up front, and then it was presented to the groundskeepers, the frontline groundskeepers, for questions, so they could ask questions to understand what they were going to be responsible for. And then we started putting together training packets for each one of these tasks, so that it was very clear from the very beginning that each person, when they first came into an area, they would be trained specifically, not just on the equipment, but on the plant material in that area. So lessons learned. Transparency creates empathy. People understand what you have and what you don't have and what you're up against. Most people tend to think that maintaining the grounds is like taking care of your own yard. It's not. 5,000 square feet times 100,000. The things are a lot different, and it's not your yard that you're cleaning, so it's done with a different kind of mindset. The other is trust your team. Nobody wants to do a bad job. Nobody wants to do a bad job. People want to do a good job. So trust that that's where they are. Make your enemies your friends. The guys that grumbled the most were the guys that we asked to be on our advisory committee. Now they're part of the plan. And they're not fighting against us. Find advisors that want to be your partners. Find people that do similar work that can help you tell your story and give confidence to those around you. I find, and I've always found, and could be probably why I'm the size that I am, that if you feed people, they'll be happy. So we fed people a lot. We had at least 2 huge events for our ground staff. One in the summer, one in the winter, when the university's virtually empty. And then we also celebrated what they do on Arbor Day and on Earth Day, with at least a lunch and a thank you, sometimes a gift, depending on how much money we could raise. Smile and laugh often. Nobody wants to talk to a grouchy person, and you want people talking to you, so smile. Be a team player, and by all means have fun, because we work where most people play, so we got a pretty good job. We work outside. A lot of us work on the beach. We didn't ask for better work. The benefits, our pay is okay. But it's better than working on a golf course. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tara and Ed.
Actually, before we jump into you guys, do you guys have any questions about this kind of the general maintenance standards and the experience of that has and going through adopting them?
My question was, I know we talked and I was able to sit in the last presentation, but maybe before the end, kind of clarifying our timeline, knowing that there's the development of the standards, communication and implementation. I think that would help us kind of scope out how this year, how we utilize this year and the rest of our committee meetings. And I also wanted to make sure we engage Nikki. Make sure she has an opportunity. If she has any questions or wonderings online. Nikki?
Yeah, thank you. I'm good though. I appreciate you passing it over to me.
I had a couple of questions. Yes. Thanks, that was a really good presentation. I think the most compelling thing you shared was that connection between parents making a decision on the school, like And I think it flowed really nicely from kind of your key result areas into your KPIs. And I think this park-like setting is for teaching, learning, and research. It's really concrete. I think it really needs help. We migrate that into KPI. From the city's perspective, do we have a statement that's kind of similar to what the KRA was in the university experience that kind of gets people, including the employees, understanding of why this is important? He makes a really good job, I feel, if that's what it is. I get it.
No, not specifically. I think inherently we know that we're here to serve public service, we're public servants, here to serve the community. But no, I don't, not that I know of.
It's something to consider. I mean, I think whether it's kind of team building or even for external communications, and if you guys even get down to KPI, people ask, well, why do I have to do this? And I think if there's an intermediate explanation of why what they're doing is hitting some objective and it's articulated, I think that might help. But I think what you shared was super compelling it's like, yeah, I get why you would want to have botanical gardens, things like setting. It's going to result in enrollment.
So we have a department motto of we have quality of life, but I think what you're pointing out is, this is a little bit more specific around.
Yeah, it's like one level above the performance indicators that might add a little more context to why somebody might be asking why we have to do this. And I guess my second question is more for both the university and the city. Are these checklists, are they done manually? So it's a paper process?
Yeah, we try to, at UH, we try to introduce handhelds. So you have to understand our entry-level staff is not necessarily computer literate. So they had a hard time with that. So what we did do is the form is in Excel and it can get transferred over into a database and then the data is collected. We kept track of hours. So we asked them to tell us how many hours they worked at a specific task to get us average hours, right, on how long it took. Because there were no real average hours for the tropics. There was a lot of temperate areas, but not for the tropics. So, a lot of hours were put in snow blowing, which we don't have except for maybe a Mauna Kea.
Yeah.
So we wanted to get a better understanding. We also know that our, civil servants may work a little bit differently than they do in the private sector. So we wanted to keep that in mind as well. Plus, I don't know if you really have looked at this, but when you look at the amount of time off that we get as government employees in sick leave and vacation, for every 4 employees you have, at least 1 is out. So you're already starting at a disadvantage. Then when you add in work comp, it decreases your labor hours even more. So to get that understanding. So you'll see on here, each of the university groundskeepers were assigned a specific area. But it says on the check sheet, it asks you where you worked, because many times your neighbor wasn't there. So you would have to go, the groundskeeper would have to go on that side to do the health safety stuff, like clear the walkways and empty the trash. So we wanted to try and capture all those hours.
Okay. And so I guess on the city side, would we also be using paper?
We have a Department of IT, and they have to, at least now, to develop apps and programs and things. We do not have the application time, so we would start out on paper. And I think that's actually not a bad thing to learn, what do you want to measure, because otherwise you're kind of developing an app.
Right.
That may or may not be useful. Yeah. So ultimately, I think you talked about it, what you call it, a business improvement system.
Business process improvement.
Business process, yeah. Yeah, so ultimately, I think we would want to get to something like that, and then, yeah.
Okay. No. And then my last question is, just, and this is nothing to do specifically with the KPIs, but in the UH experience, how would you say they've measured up to the master plan? It's been about 10 years. It's the, group.
Yeah,
Does it feel like an arboretum to you now?
it feels a lot like an arboretum.
It does, okay.
There's a lot more trees, there's a lot more diversity. Things are better labeled. There's actual curation going on. So it has definitely made a big difference. I think when people are walking back and forth throughout the campus, if they stop and look, they could at least be able to identify most of the larger trees on campus.
Would you say it's 50% to completion, 80, is it 100% they met their?
I would
Based
say
on what's on
probably
paper.
around 70%. Just because now they're really looking at landscape furnishings and amenities right in the landscape. So they're focusing a lot more on that as opposed to the actual greenscape. Yeah. I think another thing to take into consideration is that on the UH experience, the groundskeeper was doing daily inspections. The working supervisor was doing a weekly inspection, and the supervisor was doing a monthly. So what they would do is they take these sheets. So the working supervisor would take the sheets that were accumulated over the week of the area in which he was looking at and make sure things matched. Yeah. So it wasn't just somebody just going down the sheet and just checking things off. And then the full soup would take the working supervisor's, all of his packet, his whole packet with his sheet on the top, and then do a monthly. And then the manager would be walking around all over the place. So he would have these packets that he could look at to see did they actually do that work. And it wasn't just because, it's 300 acres. So you don't see all of it all the time.
I'm Tara Hirohata. As Laura said, I'm East Honolulu, so District 1. I'm the manager for District 1. So what will implementing maintenance standards require? So we kind of came up with 4 things that we think at minimum it would require. So the first thing would be training. And so when we talk about the training, there's different levels that we have here. So we have a management, which would be like the district managers. We have our middle management, which is more like our section supervisors. So within each district, we have different sections for our maintenance. And it varies, like my district has 3 sections, some other districts, and it's based off of geographical area. So we have 2 of those supervisors in each section. So we hire middle management training, as well as our line staff. So our groundskeepers, our nursery workers, our mowing crews. So those are the guys that are on the ground every day, doing our daily inspections and stuff. So by conducting the different levels of training, it will provide staff with an understanding of what is trying to be accomplished, assist with compliance, consistency, efficiency, and effectiveness, and improvement. So Carrie was talking about the safety inspection sheet that we just implemented. So just as an example, that one took about, I want to say about 5 months to create. So it kind of goes back and forth, right? We don't want to just make it and staff doesn't have input because they're the ones that will be doing it eventually. So it kind of went back and forth. And then with the training, it was different levels of training. So there was a training conducted for our line staff, our groundskeepers. So just keep in mind those forms, it's all different forms. So line staff is doing one form, supervisors are doing another form. So there's a bunch of different forms that everybody is filling out. But even the training, it took at least a good 2 months because, we kind of had to get broken down by our districts and then the different levels of training that we had to do for the different positions. So the second part is going to be that we would need adequate staffing, and I'm going to hand it over to Ed Mitsuda.
Right, Ed Mitsuda, District 1 Maintenance Superintendent. And so for number 2, for adequate staffing, without proper staffing, regular scheduled maintenance will not be completed. Delayed responses to maintenance issues increased workload and burnout. Specialized crews for mowing, trimming trees, herbicide treatment, etc. So as an example, for a mooring crew, these employees are specially trained to operate trucks, trailers, and transport equipment. Next slide. But this is a sample of the type of equipment that they transport and use that they are trained on. So riding mowers, which is 72, which is the one on the left side. Wide area mowers, also known as WAMs, is the one right in the middle. And the vehicles that they operate is the trucks, various sizes. This is a larger one with a bigger trailer that actually transports the WAMs. Okay. So they use it to transport different locations within a district. Okay, therefore, we would be unable to train other employees that could be put into a temporary assignment to cover these key positions if the regular employees on vacation or sick leave, thus your family leave. As a result, your scheduled maintenance would not be completed. Number 3, so proper equipment and supplies. Okay, so without the proper equipment and supplies, tasks will take much longer to be completed or may not be completed at all. Cause overgrowth in areas, would pose safety risks and hazards, deterioration of infrastructure. So as an example, we put, as aforementioned, mowing crews. If their machines go down or need repairs, it could be done in a few days. Other times it may take months to get the parts needed to complete the repairs. And in most instances, the department does not have spare machines for the districts to use while waiting for repairs to be completed.
So it could just be if it's down for 2 months that we're down one more and we have to try to do it. So if it's our WAM, which is our bigger ones, so the WAMs actually cover our larger fields, right? So it covers more grass. It doesn't take as long to cut. But if it's down, we're going with our smaller ones, which is only 72 inches. So now it's probably going to double our time in doing that work. And so for some of the districts, we try to cut once a week, every park once a week. But when things like that happen, we're kind of stuck. And if we don't have, any additional equipment, it could go down to we're going to cut every other week now.
And the other districts, like say District 4, because of the distance that they have to travel, it may get pushed back 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. All depends on the turnaround, repairs, and everything, equipment and or replacement of equipment. We also have another example. For playground equipment, we don't have the expertise or the materials to do the repairs. So the department contracts out work and depending on what is needed, most times it'll take several months for the replacement equipment to arrive.
So like a broken slide. We have a lot of broken slides, but because of COVID, shipping and all of that, it'll be down for probably 6 months. It can get ordered, but because of all the delays and it's just down, we don't have the expertise to try to fix it ourselves. Another part is like the resilient surface, so the bottom part of the playground. We had some that was coming up, but we don't have the material or the supplies to try to fix it ourselves, so it has to get contracted out.
Yeah, also another example that we have is for athletic fields. We also don't have the dedicated staff trained in athletic field maintenance. So like turf management, aerating equipment, and fertilizing done. Our fertilizing right now is being done through our maintenance support services. But there's no actual staff on hand in each district that specifically will maintain athletic fields. Back to Tara.
So some of the supporting agencies that we would need assistance from to try to implement maintenance standards. The first one would be Department of Facility Maintenance, and they provide the electricians, and they also do our automotive and equipment repairs. So when our lawnmowers go down, we have to send it out to a different department for repairs. So they're doing multiple departments repairs. So that's kind of the backlog as well as parts and stuff like that. We also require the assistance of the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services. So they assist us with purchasing equipment, so anything over $25,000 needs to go through their department. And they also assist with the staffing. So in order for us to fill any positions that we have that are vacant, it needs to go through them for approval prior to us filling. Department of Human Resources, same thing. So it's the staffing approvals, everything runs through them. So it's for us to fill a position, it takes probably about 2 weeks to get all the approvals, just to fill one vacancy. We'd also need the Department of Design and Construction. So they assist us with the capital improvement projects and updating our park standards. And then for that, what is that thing? Business something, that's it. That we would need the Department of Information and Technology. So they do all of our IT things. So like the inspection sheet, hopefully at some point we can get it electronically. But right now everything is manual. So when they get turned into us, we get a stack about like this every month. Yeah. But it would be good, to just kind of compile the data. And I think we can get there. It's just we got to figure out what kind of information we're trying to get out of it too. Did you guys have any questions or comments? I'm scared.
That's super helpful. I think I really appreciate Ed bringing up the kind of reality on the ground. I think it's good to think about the process with the capabilities that exist, right? Because we could run into a situation where we're gathering the survey information and the assessment of all the needs that are there are in, but then our ability to respond to it is handicapped because of resources. So I think it's very simultaneous and just think about that, because once that feedback comes in about all the things that need to be worked on, it's going to go directly to what's the department doing, and if we don't have the resources to do that. Yeah. High scrutiny. I haven't really kept up on the budget process with the city. I would imagine that a lot of the needs of this department is getting communicated at the district level. Like I've seen like kind of blanket open FTEs, but does the average council member know what both the capital and the human resource needs are by district?
So the council districts are starting, the boundaries are different than our boundaries. So there's 9 council members in 9 districts, we have 5. So they are pretty aware of what's needed in they're pretty aware of what's needed in the trees, in the city trees. They get a lot of fewer people thank you.
Yeah.
Just in general, but they get the compliments too. Put things out like that. They'll put in council ads to what's in the mayor's budget, and so that kind of signals to us. We just got the listing of all the ads that each council member put in, kind of where they're prioritizing. But overall, when we went up and did our budget presentation this year, they're happy with the direction it's taking, and they want to. So I'm cautiously optimistic that our budget will do that. And nobody is budget so far. Yeah. So that's good. They're just asking to add.
And Tara, I'm just curious, like what kind of feedback were you getting on the training that's different between management, middle management, and line staff? Just kind of anecdotal in terms of.
I think there was a lot of grumbling.
Yeah. Was the grumbling different though by
well, it's new, right? So anytime we try to establish something new, then But I think once it was explained to them, like, okay, look, this is gonna help us, right? Because if something happens, you can always go back to your sheet and be like, no, I informed my supervisor about it on this day. It was noted on the sheet. And I think once we did the explanation and gave them a little bit more background on it, I think the buy-in was better, and then once they started doing it, then they're like, oh yeah. Actually, it's better because I told my boss about this, but they never did anything, Right. So, but I don't think it's too negative. I think it's just, when there's change, then But I think that's why the training, doing it by section or by, different levels, it's better because everybody was doing it separately too, like people were doing it prior, but everybody was using maybe a different form or, it wasn't consistent. So when they did the training, and it wasn't only for, I think it wasn't only for the districts at the time. Each district did separate training. Yeah. But, the groundskeepers all went, and then it was like the section supervisors and then like the superintendents that went. So they all got different trainings. But superintendents were also in the other training, so they knew what was going on, what the line was being told, and so I think it worked out okay. It seems to be doing okay now.
And the open FTEs, is it pretty, like, what's the ballpark on that?
We actually are the
Unfilled.
#1 department in the city for filling positions right now. So for the grounds maintenance, Christine, do you want to describe the mass interviews a little bit?
Yes, so we do a groundskeeper mass interview where we set out a vacancy for island-wide. And all of the districts help with the interviewing process. Basically, they come in, it's just this 15-minute interview. You just interviewed, scored. Once we complete all the interviews, we gather all the information, all of the scores, we rank them, and then we send it off to ESD to kind of start giving offers. They do fill out a sheet where it's like where they want to work because it is island wide. We don't want to put people who live in Waianae out of way, which actually sometimes they like that too, but they get a preference based on all our vacancies. And then we fill them. So this last one we did, I think in early December, we had about 40 that were approved to get hired, and then we filled them already. So it's just this kind of now, with the groundskeepers, they come in, they leave, or they go up for promotion. There's so many vacancies, not only with the city, state, and all the different agencies that, it's just this revolving door back and forth. But we are currently going to do one in District 4. So originally we were doing it solely in Kapolei. And what I wanted to try and do is get it out to the district. So it gives them opportunity to travel to where possibly that they would work. So in District 4, we're having issues with keeping people in that area, like on the windward side, or having people wanting to go to that area. So each district or maybe multiple districts will work together to just do a mass interview there. Not necessarily are they interviewing just for their district, but for the entire island. But it just gives the applicant an opportunity to be able to go to someplace closer. Maybe transportation is an issue. Kapolei is pretty out there. So if you were to live in, Wailua, it's a little difficult to get out there. So that's we're making slight changes just to kind of see, if it helps. If it doesn't help, then we go back to how it was before. But the Mass Cheek interviews, we've been doing pretty well with, we also adjusted our questions. In the past, we've done very skilled questions, like, do you know how to use this? Do you know how to use that? What is your experience, your skill experience? We did change our questions to become more soft skills. Like, what would you do if this were to happen? If an irate customer comes to you, so it's more of not what you can do, but it's like, because you can be trained, on the skill, you cannot be trained on soft skills, or it doesn't come as easily. So there's a little bit adjustments here and there when it comes to our Mass GK interviews.
And do you guys have like a vacancy factor, like 20%?
No, it was,
Ballpark?
when this administration came in, it was a little bit over 20%. We are now down at about 16.5%. So we've been able to fill a lot of positions, largely because of the mass changes. Not every fill is external. We're about to, so we do have a net positive. And we're getting data on the people that are leaving. We'd like to be able to do more exit interviews and things. So far, the data I've got, it's not for a long career. It tends to be people more in mid-career, not, that are coming in. So we do have a lot of promotional opportunities, through then like at Division of Urban Forestry, they may come in through nursery landscaping, work their way up, get an arborist, certification, maybe get a commercial driver's license through the department, new jobs, that they can stay with the department, and work up through different opportunities, but and maybe for early retirement in the private sector or to another department for a heavier equipment opportunity.
Well, I really appreciated the presentation. It helped to shape at least my understanding of kind of some of the challenges, particularly with fields. And that's where I kind of intersect a lot in the community, a lot of baseball and football leagues and some soccer. And so I think I understand some of the challenges, when there's repair needs or staffing needs and why, grass may be longer here and there. And so it helps to know that. And I'm just wondering, maybe this is for Kihao and then for Laura. How might these standards help to drive some changes in the way we address things like equipment shutdowns or staffing issues? And I like the idea of that special projects team and whether that can help lend some relief across districts in ways that help to support hotspots. But just wondering, can this work of standards development help to advance some modifications to the way that we're providing services out there, so that we're not hitting ground balls and it's running through long grass and pops out right before a kid, for safety reasons, not just development.
Yeah, we think it can. So maybe that goes to the next steps. So one of the things we talked about is what is the role of the Board of Parks and Recreation, the Maintenance Committee, and then going through with the standards. If we develop the standards, keeping in mind that we also have to simultaneously look at what is needed to implement the standards. Part of what we would have to be doing in the next steps is kind of quantifying what do we have now and what are we able to do now. We are working on a large field restoration. Carrie Leong is part of her district is Waipio Soccer. The regional tournament this June. And so they've been doing a very extensive, all the fields as well as the stadium restoration that's been involving the District 5 staff. Shannon over here is working with a lot of the soccer leagues on a volunteer basis. Our maintenance support services, the grounds maintenance, Caesar over there has been working with this crew on with aeration equipment and different types of supplies. So we want to quantify what is the cost of that as far as what types of equipment are being used, the hours that they're being used, what type of staff are in there working, the type of work they're doing, and then the supplies. And that would give us kind of a baseline of if you're going to go in and do heavy rehabilitation of soccer fields, what would it be? Carrie also helped lead a fairly expensive ball field restoration at Central Oahu Regional Park. And that's a planning where out of the 12 ball fields, they're taking 2 offline each summer to do restoration. We did the first 2 last summer, the 2 are coming up this summer, so we'll quantify that cost and that would give us an idea. But obviously then we're going to have to do some other work. So part of the next steps is kind of figuring out what are the standards we want to start with, and then be mindful when we're developing standards for athletic fields and these other areas. We have additional pieces which we showed you at the beginning that we also have to take care of. So if we can maybe measure what do they call it, the delta between the staffing and equipment and supplies that we have and what people would want to do. We have, in addition, a couple areas where we have extra staffing. So Ala Moana, Kakiolani / Waikiki, they have second crews. So what are they able to achieve with that type of level of staffing? How often can garbage be picked up? How often can restrooms be cleaned? How often can certain things be done? Compared to parks that don't have that, that only have the 6:30 to 2:30 crews. So I think as we start to look at, what we have, what are standards that are in other park districts? When we look at their standards, we also want to look at what are your staffing topics. If you're able to do this, and I think we have in your handouts, the standards for San Francisco Department of Recreation and Parks. We can ask them, as you develop these standards, which took them 10 years to develop, what was your staff when you started that? And did that start to inform where you need to put additional staffing? What type of staff, what type of equipment to raise it? So we think that that's going to be a large part of what we do. And then I think the role of the board, we would find it very helpful if you folks us with that. Because we definitely want to have the public involved in shaping what these standards, are going to contain, what's their desire, but also for them to understand the resource limitations, helping us manage expectations. People don't trust government in general, but I think it's play a role where you are members of the public. Would you call it, Robert, the outside voice inside? Yeah.
Community voice inside.
Yeah. And so we think by partnering with the maintenance committee and the process, this can help a lot with being that, trusted resource from the impartial resource from the public perspective, give us the input, the work is on kind of helping to talk to the other policymakers on standards would require this additional support or this role that's taken on by the user groups, or how we can find ways to fund these things, because I think we tend to not charge for use of these areas. So when I was at the Department of Land and Natural Resources, we came up with a proposal that said we can do these types of repairs and maintenance, but here's the fees, but you can trust that they will go towards these improvements. Types of things, so that might be a process that we can go through as part of this as well. It's a very long answer, but I'm going to say if it took San Francisco 10 years and if it took UH, it sounded like 8 from the years that you gave us. It's not going to be a fast process, but I think we have a lot to look to, and we've already started some things. So maybe we work out, if we can today identify the initial features we want to focus on, and maybe the types of groups we want to set up, then we could work with you to start to come up with a well-defined schedule. So in our initial discussion, and Nikki, because you're online, San Francisco came up with 12 park features to develop maintenance standards for. We can do whatever we want. It doesn't have to follow their model. But we took a look at an initial conversation within the department and picking ones where it does get a lot of public attention. And we think that this is doable, focusing on starting with 4 topics. So the athletic fields being one, spaces and trees being the second one. A lot of people parks just to hang out. So that's the playgrounds, and then bathrooms. I know bathrooms may sound a little bit different, like people will come to the park, the playground, they'll come to the park to hang out, they'll come to play a game. But actually one of the things I learned when I took this job is if you go during the days to a lot of our parks and just sit there, especially the parks that are, the number of delivery drivers, the number of landscapers, the number of bus drivers that parks just use the bathrooms is pretty astounding. Heavy meetings, and we get a lot of complaints about it. And then we were thinking that the working groups may be kind of split into 2 large categories, because you guys' time is limited as well as ours, but kind of the public interface, the outreach to talk about this, the recommendations, getting their education on understanding, our capacity, they could play, and then the taking a look at the standard development, the other type of work that would need to be done, at least for the short term, is taking a look at gathering sample standards, maybe bringing in people with some particular expertise in areas that they can share with us, and then the data on these funds.
And so for the board, working group A would be our area too.
I think it'd be your area, but we would love your input. And so as much role as you folks would like to play, I mean, based on the questions that you're asking, you have a lot of experience in systems. And so I think this in a way it's a system. And so your expertise, even though it's not in park ground maintenance, it's going to be better. You got a lot of knowledge and thoughts.
Have somebody had asked me, so aren't you on the board of Parks and Bathrooms? They really thought it was part of it. But I think to your point, it is useful. Yeah, they were serious too.
So as we look at next steps with this committee, do we want to solidify now? Like, when are we gonna? How do we activate parts of the committee or the board to help be that liaison to community groups and then I'm thinking, yeah, these features are different, and so the things like athletic fields, I think at least for myself, have some network there with leagues and groups and sports groups and otherwise that could help kind of set up conversations. But I'm open to supporting and facilitating kind of that voice. But kind of like if we look at a timeline, so my question earlier on kind of timeline, when do we anticipate wanting to have some of those conversations and then maybe we can scope out after that how we can engage to help get those insights in and share out some of the perspectives on kind of the capacity and what's going on and where we're headed with the standards.
I think I guess what we would need is kind of a measure from the community members on your interests, and it may be different features or it may be different aspects of the working group and where you'd like to participate with us on, and it may be different levels, but kind of working out those next steps. We would approach it. I could see that if we're doing a public interface, that the interface with the public on athletic fields slightly tailored in one way, whereas if you're dealing with playgrounds, bathrooms, it may be a little bit different. So even though we may be working on the same timetable, we could work with you folks in different subject matters, as long as the committee as a whole understands the timetable. I think that's where we would start to have those conversations about getting more specific on what would a timetable be and where would we want to be in year 2. So
I kind of see almost opportunistic as we learn more about what the initiatives are. There might be opportunities as the board members to say, okay, that's something where we can maybe assist in this or that. So let's figure out what that is.
And I know Judith is on the committee and is not here, but she is very interested in trees. So I don't mean to volunteer her, but I'm assuming that she's going to be interested in the greenscape trees.
I'm happy to support athletic fields and if there's opportunities that make sense to support other areas.
Well, maybe what we can do, Robert, is we can work with you. We have another because you folks are governed by the Sunshine Law, you can't need to make decisions that you're going to vote on, but you're interesting because you're more of an advisory committee. So, and you can certainly have questions or talk one-on-one with the committee members. But maybe we can, if you had time to digest this, what each of the committee members' interests may be and work out a timetable. And then we can start working on some of the second working group on sample standards, expertise, and data. And then we look if you want, a timetable, and then the board will. I think we should, even though these meetings are public, we are only reaching some of the point because everyone's busy. So, we talked about doing things like surveys, ways of inviting people, and provide input on this. The athletic field group users is the easiest because we have their email contacts because they get. Other park users tend to be more. So your thoughts on that would be
Sounds good. Any other, Nikki, I don't know if Nikki had any last thoughts?
I was just curious, Laura, I'm not part of this committee, but I'm just curious how, like, if the other board members are able to support in some way and participate in this as well.
Yes, I think we'll be talking with John about the meeting next month will be the full board again, and then each of the two committees will be making a report to the full board. So we'll talk with John and I guess with you about whether I don't know if it's worthwhile to do a streamlined version of the presentation to the full board. And then get his interest. John is on this committee, but he was traveling today, so he was not able to join us. But I think we can figure out some more detail. Certainly the full board can play a big role in the intersection with the public, Nikki, in all aspects of this, because even though you're on the program committee, I think you're going to get a lot of questions from the public about maintenance, because that's often top of mind from them.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, thank you.
And since you're not here, we'll send you a copy of the materials, but part of the materials passed out today, it does show that San Francisco, when they develop maintenance standards, they actually have a outside agency do the inspections. So they do quarterly inspections of all the parks, and then they publish an annual highlights report, and that's online as well. So that's part of when people talk about transparency, a lot of it is communication. And, we'd like to hear your thoughts. How we can improve that communication with the public as we go through the process and then ultimately with what the final process, product looks like.
Next item on the agenda is public testimony. We're now proceed with remote testifiers. Okay. Seeing none. No in person. Oh, okay. None. Okay.
Didn't see anybody online.
Okay. Before we adjourn, we have just one more announcement.
Well, one very important one, and I apologize to all the staff for not beginning with this, but I thought it would be to explain to people who we have in the room.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of the upper management supervisors for the maintenance from the different sections. So I was going to begin with our district, the districts 1 through 5. Any of the folks with districts 1 through 5, please stand up and just so they can see you. So our yep. So this is the district management and grounds maintenance supervisors. In various roles. Thank you all. And then if we could have maintenance support services. We have a couple of folks here. This is our trades group. 2 of them are joining us from the manager supervisor. And then for Division of Urban Forestry, our horticultural services group. So our tree trimming and our nursery and landscaping is Brandon is up on the screen waving at you. And then our botanical gardens director, Sarah, just at one. And then our Division of Urban Forestry administrator and Roxanne, you heard from. Christine is our parks maintenance administrator. And then our back office, which is, we couldn't get anything done without them, Kim.
Hello. Nice to see and get to see all of you. I hope to learn and interact more. Just hearing that during the 64 days of park use, it's just mind blowing, and knowing that your role is to kind of maintain and evolve and improve that for the public and improve our living standards is really my age. And so mahalo to all of you for your work, and yeah, the energy and the enthusiasm around this work is great, and look forward to seeing it proceed throughout the year and years. Any other announcements?
I have one.
Yep.
So I just wanted to share that today is Laura's birthday.
Oh.
I want to wish her a happy birthday.
Thank you.
I can sing, you know.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
You actually have a very good voice.
If you guys sing with me, you know, we can wait till the meeting's done.
Okay. We will record that. Okay. Happy birthday. And let's end on that note. So this meeting is adjourned. Mahalo.
Hello. Thank you.
Thank you.